Hi everyone, thanks for joining us today for our first ever episode of Fortitude. My name is Alda Lou Dennis. I'm a general partner at Initialized Capital, and we started this show because I know how difficult it is to be a founder, and I wanted you to see and hear some stories from actual founders about how they've overcome their hardest week or their hardest moment, and the challenges that they have overcome to reach the point that they have today. Joining me today is co-founder and CEO of Clipboard Health, Deng. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'd love to hear a little bit more about your journey with Clipboard Health. I know that it's a service that provides healthcare facilities with matching for healthcare staff like nurses. Tell us a little bit about what prompted you to start Clipboard Health, and congratulations on your recent round of financing that you can talk a little bit about that too.
It's a pleasure to see you. So I started Clipboard Health with one mission, which is to lift as many people up the socioeconomic ladder as possible. And that's still the mission of the company today. We didn't start out as a healthcare company at all, but the initial product was a financial product to help students and professionals either finance or refinance their student loans through an ISA, so income share agreement, which now has become more in vogue, but back then, back in 2016 was quite new. And I really struggled to fundraise, but also more importantly, I struggled to get customers. So I was looking at groups of people to fund. And during that process, I talked to nurses, doctors, engineers, everybody. And basically none of the users wanted the financial product, but I had a clue, which was that the nurses I talked to wanted help finding a better job or wanted a job that had a better schedule. And so I started and I thought, okay, these are people that who can really help. These are real human beings with real problems. And I had taught myself how to code at a previous job. So I created a job board for them that over time, I realized the real problem was around scheduling and logistics and having more options to work, that over time evolved into the current marketplace model where facilities can post shifts a la carte onto the platform. And the nurses, the healthcare workers, can pick and choose ones that match with their schedule and location preference. And, really proud of the team that we've built. We just announced our Series C funding led by Sequoia at over $1 billion. So really, really exciting times for the company.
I definitely agree. I know that it took you a little while to go from the original business model, and we invested the seed to get to the Series A. And, it's those sort of that journey in particular that I think is of interest to people watching in terms of what process you went through to figure out a new business model and iterate quickly from that one if that one wasn't working. And you mentioned a few along the way.
Yeah, definitely. So first of all, just to give you a sense, it took about over 2 years, probably close to 2.5 years before we got to the current model. And I would say that with each of the iterations, there were probably 6 to 7 major iterations. We had a job board, we had a Quora, we had a salary estimator. I mean, we had a fellowship program. We experimented with different things to see which ones actually solved our customer problems. And at every time, I found myself trying to really push the customers to adopt something, but it wasn't providing value to them. It wasn't obvious to them that this was there was a valuable proposition. I would at that point say, okay, let's try something else. I think the thing that worked for us was just making it very cheap, not financially necessarily, but just psychologically made it very cheap to shut down like a different business idea and evolve based on our customer needs. And that's something that I still instill in the company even today, because even though we have a model that is working for us over time, as the markets evolve, one of the things that I'm looking out for is, this may not be the thing that works 10 years from now or 5 or 10 years from now. So what are the things that we should be thinking today, and how do we plan ahead so that we actually always stay ahead of the market?
That makes a lot of sense. I know you started your career as a lawyer, and you also spent some time as an early employee at another initialized portfolio company, Sunwave, which is now called Chime. Can you talk a little bit about what you might have learned there that helps you, run Clipboard Health today?
Yeah, definitely. So first of all, at Sunwave, which was an awesome company, they help the African diaspora send money back home, and the focus was on East Africa. There, first of all, not enough engineers. I taught myself how to code, but more importantly, it was the first fully remote company I worked at. So I learned the pros and cons of running a remote company, but also some of the things to avoid and some of the things to focus on, like writing heavy culture, just how to work asynchronously with your team. Because when we started Clipboard Health, it was a fully remote company from day one, and that was back in 2016. So I think I learned that part from Sunwave. From being an attorney, I think that the thing that I took away from is just not being scared generally about of industries and of problems that have either a legal or regulatory component. Because at the end of the day, if you run a business that gets to enough scale, there's going to be people who will, people are going to be suing you. There's going to be regulators, scrutinizing your business. And generally speaking, you do have to stay on top of your compliance. And so that's something that I think I was not as scared of, having had that legal background and just the knowledge that we'll figure it out and make sure that, whatever issues we have, we're going to address them.
And I know that you brought in your husband, who was another successful founder of a prior company, as your COO after your Series A. I'm curious as to what the decision was to sort of work with him and what he's brought to the table, and how you've managed to navigate what is probably sometimes a trickier situation in terms of having your spouse also be your direct report.
Definitely. So first of all, I tried to talk him out of joining, and we had 6
I was like, where were you when we were struggling, right?
Exactly. We were discussing for 6 to 8 months, and I know that he was really excited about the mission, because at the end of the day, it's not just my mission, but it's our shared family mission. And so he was really passionate about it. He saw the growth from the sidelines, and he really wanted to join. But I was really scared. I was scared of it messing up our family life. We just had our first child then, and and also, now we're going to be working together and having kids together. I think that was just very scary, and I didn't want to. But at some point, so I realized a few things. First of all, he is one of the most brilliant people I've ever met and known. He's also a fantastic operator and extremely good at separating work from family. I saw that firsthand, sort of like a consummate professional. And so I had faith that if things didn't work out, like if it turned out that our work relationship was not a good fit, that we would exit him gracefully and then have me continue running the company. But it wouldn't ultimately impact our romantic relationship, which we put at the forefront. We're like, whatever happens, we're not going to have it affect our family life. So we did a 3-month trial with him, and it worked out great, which is why we ended up converting him to full time. But yeah, it's not perfect. I think the fact that we have very different domains of expertise helps quite a bit. The fact that we ultimately really respect each other helps a bit. And obviously the fact that we're quite aligned in how we want to raise our kids and how we want to spend our time at work, means that the surface area for friction is much lower than it would have otherwise been.
On the journey, you've talked a little bit about how you iterated and found product market fit and changed business models a couple of times. Can you talk a little bit about how sort of the personal and professional have met in other senses in terms of juggling 2 kids? And you talked about the difficulties of fundraising while doing that. And specifically in the context of, your most difficult period of time with respect to Clipboard Health.
Yeah, definitely. So first of all, I will say, it's been a pretty challenging 6 years, all things considered. I've been very lucky in many ways, but I remember, so the first time trying to raise a seed round for the company, I got told no by 60 plus investors. Just couldn't raise a round at all. It was like, it took me 2 to 3 months, and it was all rejections. Second time I tried to raise a seed round, I had a miscarriage in the middle of it, and it was incredibly difficult because, I really wanted to have a child, and it was hard to get pregnant in the first place. So to then have this miscarriage, which then you can't really discuss during your pitch meeting. So you kind of have to go in and be super excited. I couldn't just cut it. I didn't feel like I was equipped to just cut off the process, because I had to keep going with the fundraise.
Myself, I've gone through something like that. And the worst thing is, you don't tell anybody about the pregnancy for, 10, 11, 12 weeks.
It was this weird disconnect where I had to, people were asking me these questions that kind of weren't necessarily that relevant. I had to answer it with full enthusiasm. And then afterwards, I would just collapse in emotional exhaustion and physical exhaustion too, because I ended up having to have a procedure post post miscarriage. I mean, honestly, when I went to raise my Series A, I was also pregnant. So I was like, oh, just my luck. This is, the timing of it all. And during the last round, I actually had another miscarriage. So I think there's just it every single time. My Bo always jokes. He's like, I think we should not do any more fundraisers because it's too hard on your body. So each time it was difficult, but aside from fundraising, of course, just navigating the day-to-day challenges. I remember we've had. There were some other difficult periods of the company where I had someone that I really trusted that I had hired who left, and that's fine, but they left to work at a competitor. And what I didn't realize was that they had been working for the competitor the entire time they were here. And
wow.
Yeah, that was really hard for me because
That's where being a lawyer comes in handy, doesn't it, we?
Absolutely. Yes. So that was helpful. But, from an emotional level, I felt really devastated because I trusted them. I invested so much of my time, mentoring them and helping them. So it felt like this big betrayal. So there were all of these other challenges that comes now with scaling. So I think every step of the way, there's like some good parts of it. Sometimes when you don't have any customers, nobody's mad at you, but then you kind of feel the pressure to solve your customer problems.
Well, and thank you for being so open with the more difficult periods of time. I think that it's particularly meaningful because, there are a number of venture-backed companies who are in the same space that Clipboard Health is in. And we heard from many investors as you raised your B and as you raised your C, that they had looked at the competitors and, your underlying metrics were much stronger and the team at Clipboard Health was the one that they wanted to back. And so I think it's that much more rewarding to hear that from third parties who had not invested yet. We've been with you since the seed. Can you share a little bit on sort of where you guys are as a company? I know you're in dozens of cities.
We have over 1,000 facility customers, and these could be hospitals, they could be nursing homes. And then we also are in 20 plus cities, trying to double our footprint by the end of the year. So lots of aggressive growth going on right now. And, we have a team of over 600 people, which is just quite a lot to manage. I remember when Bo joined, actually, we had 20, 25 people, and that seemed really big at the time because I never managed a team so large. Now, 25 seems like a vacation in comparison. So I think that's where the company is, and we have a lot of exciting new product launches that we have planned. And I was just talking to our group product managers 30 minutes before this show. So much that's exciting. But of course, I think the thing that I keep on telling the team and reminding myself is the thing that got us here was staying very close to customers. I try not to focus too much on competitors. I think there are lots of great companies in a similar space solving this problem. And I think that's actually really good for the ecosystem. And for us, it's just important to stay close to the customer so that we continue solving their problems, and it's not just about like doing, what your competitors are doing.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for your insights and for joining us. We really appreciate your time. And I know that you've been a great founder with Initialized, and hopefully we'll have many, many great years ahead.